Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for the fourth talk in the Moral Ambition for AI series, where we spotlight leading builders and thinkers who are shaping AI for humanity's benefit. AI systems pose an existential threat and are already causing real-world harms. Policy and technical measures can reduce these risks, but too few people are currently working on these problems. That said, making a career transition into AI risk reduction can be challenging. But we are fortunate that today's speaker can help us navigate this path. Patrick Gruban is an entrepreneur, former co-director of Effective Altruism Germany, and currently an interim CEO of Successif. Successif is a free career program that pairs experienced professionals with dedicated advisors to help them transition into AI safety and governance. Patrick will share a practical guidance on building a career that advances AI safety. Patrick, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to share your advice with us. And without further delay, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Patrick Gruban. Have been at Successif for the last 1.5 years. My background is entrepreneurship. I was an entrepreneur for 30 years, and then 6 years ago, I decided I want to change into a more impactful career, and that led me down a rabbit hole of first discovery and learning about impactful roles, and then more than 1 year transition period where I didn't have any support. So finding Successif, that was started 4 years ago, really helped me, or was really inspiring in terms of like having an organization that actually can help with that. So part of what I'm doing at Successif is are things that would have helped me at that point in time. So we are focused on AI safety, talents, career advising, and our outcome metrics is people who actually make a successful career transition into the field. We only work with mid-career and senior professionals. People have at least 5 years of experience. And what I'll share with you today is based on our work. Why does this matter right now? So you probably already had a lot of discussion around that, but just to give you a brief overview, leading researchers estimate a probability of 3 to 50% of AI causing catastrophic harm this century. This is sort of numbers from a couple of years ago. Things haven't gotten sort of better in that sense, probably sped up more. We estimate that there are probably around about 2,000 people working in that field at the moment. Could also be a bit more, but in terms of the ballpark numbers, that's probably 2,000. Probably something in the orders of 2 orders of magnitude more people working on capabilities, advancing AI at the moment. And our estimate is that we need at least 2,000 people more working per year on that in this area, just in terms of the potential funding coming in. In general, we need probably many more people. As in comparison, the cybersecurity field has probably 20-25% of the size of the whole software development field. So there could be more people working on that, but just in terms of current organizations and talent gap, that's at least the number we're seeing right now. So these 2,000 people per year, we have to recruit into the field. And just let's look again, or first at the different risk pathways for catastrophic risk. So there are different ways to slice this up, but I think the 4 of them make it a little bit easier to navigate the field. There's on the one hand side misalignment. That has been the field that AI safety researchers have been focused on for the longest time. This is sort of the area that has started at least the current people in this area. So AI pursuing goals that cause unintentional harm at scale. this includes AI's scheming and sort of pursuing goals and the sub-goals being harmful. So organizations working on that have been looking at the technical side of AI misalignment. This includes also doing things like interpretability of AI systems, evaluations of AI systems, red teaming, trying to find out what AIs are currently doing. Also, this work is being done in the AI companies at the moment. We also have the CBRN risks, so the risk of chemical, biological, reactive nuclear weapons being built. AI capabilities advancing means that we can compress decades of bioweapons research into years, for example. So organizations like Johns Hopkins Centers for Health Security are working on this. Organizations like SecureBio, but also AI frontier organizations have been putting safeguards in their systems. But yeah, the challenge is to make sure these safeguards are not circumvented or disabled. We have the risk of collapse of democracies, probably one of the most salient topics at the moment. Disinformation, mass surveillance, and similar risks also. And then the fourth one is the risk of war, autonomous weapons, destabilizing nuclear deterrence. So the bottom two, very also part of the discussion of the last week between the Department of War and Anthropic. So yeah, things that perhaps 1 or 2 years ago seemed very futuristic are suddenly becoming very very urgent at the moment. So in all of these different pathways, we need people working. There are a lot of overlaps. So as I said, AI frontier organizations working on things, people working on the policy side, think tanks, for example, on the collapse of democracy side, think tanks working on that, also on the terms of the war side. So different pathways, overlapping organizations. Our current estimate is that there are probably 300, 400 organizations worldwide that are the main contributors in that field. That could decrease, but also some of them could increase these kinds of risks. Many of them are smaller organizations, small research organizations, think tanks, but then there are also bigger institutional players, including governance and international organizations. So one thing that oftentimes surprises people I talk to who haven't been in the field is that we don't just need PhDs, people with a machine learning background to work on this problem. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago and spoke with several people in the field, and I included a few of these quotes of people in that from organizations. So one person in the AI evaluation org told me that a director of operations could be the single biggest bottleneck removal in their organization. One manager at a frontier AI organization said they need a chief of staff for AGI safety, strategic, organized, high agency. Another person in other organizations said they're planning to hire 15 to 30 research managers managing researchers in the next 6 to 12 months. And another think tank CEO told me they have a lab operator role open for 1.5 years that hasn't been filled. So oftentimes these roles that are the hardest to fill are roles in management, operations, policy, and leadership, not the research roles. Research is also a big part of the hiring gap, but there are more organizations actually focusing on educating researchers. So we have an existing talent pipeline in the field, but for more senior people, there isn't like a lot of information around, and that also like organizations are currently seeing this bottleneck. In terms of like specific roles that could make a bigger difference, based on the interviews from the conference I did, and also interviews others did in the field, there are certain roles that seem to be have a very high counterfactual, that could be high leverage roles, and that are have been hard to fill. The one role are research managers. So as I said, like one organization alone wanting to hire many of these. This is a role that could be filled by former engineering managers, research and development leaders. You don't have to be a machine learning expert for that. Like a lot of context can be learned, but knowing how to get into technical fields, being able to be an individual contributor, having like similar knowledge, and then also having the knowledge of managing people is necessary there. Second role that has been really hard for organizations to fill is director of operations or COO type of roles. So that also, like when I came into the field, I started as COO at Successif, and in my career transition also, this was like one of the most surprising things for me to get into the field, where you have like a lot of brilliant researchers, and finding that the operations side is really oftentimes lacking, and organizations really struggle to fill this role. So this could be filled by current COOs, vice president of operations people, startup operators. You have to imagine this field is mainly dominated by smaller organizations, organizations that currently are 5 or 10 people big, but want to scale. Some of them more in the orders like 1 order of magnitude bigger, but not much bigger. So you seldomly find organizations with more than 100 people. So like finding somebody who has this experience and is willing to work at a smaller organization sometimes is really hard. Another role that is hard to fill is a research to policy translator. So this is basically a person who can really read technical research papers, but is also already really integrated into the policy field, has an existing network, has experience, isn't completely new to policy. So it is specialized in the sense of needing this background, but within the policy field, I think there are more people who could actually fill this role, but it needs sort of the willingness to change positions. So yeah, could be for policy analysts with technical fluency. Then we are also lacking senior product or program managers, or chief of staff type of people. So this could be strategic generalist consultants who could work on that. People who just can jump in and understand what is needed and act on that. Other high impact roles and niche critical roles are political operators or policy advocates. One person I talked to said like all countries could need AI advocacy organizations similar to Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch being active in most of the countries in the world. Similarly, most of the countries probably will need to also have some kind of AI based legislation, can have like some also regional influence on AI or international bodies. So in all of these countries, there could be there would be the potential for think tanks, but these have to be staffed. At the moment, a lot of organizations are doing more outreach. They're trying to get more into communications. So communication leads are oftentimes needed. I think that can be like a broader category of roles. Within that, some are more focused on PR, others more on digital advertising. Really depends on the kind of organization. So that's sometimes a little bit hard to define, but coming in and having sort of like a broader portfolio can make you more attractive. We do still need machine learning engineers who are mission aligned, who are really focused on reducing global catastrophic risks from AI. This is the highest volume on hires at the moment, but at the same time also has the highest number of people applying to the field. So it is to be taken with nuance in terms of like if you have really impressive, great background in that field, you definitely have a good chance to contribute and could be really needed, but it could also be hard to get in. And then there are also more niche roles that you don't see so often, but are nonetheless very critical. Recently, I helped somebody to get into a biosecurity and AI role, who told us that this sector is really understaffed. There are not many people like having like both sides, both views, but it is also really hard to find people who have that. People in China policy is one thing. And then we also need entrepreneurial builders, so people who can actually start new organizations to grow the field. This can be nonprofit entrepreneurs, but it can also be people starting one of the upcoming new AI safety for-profit organizations that we're seeing more and more. So Ryan Kidd, who is the CEO of MATS, one of the education organizations in the field, has the concept of the amplifier, a role that doesn't really exist in terms of there are no training programs for that, but most organizations actually need. So this is a person who's plural skill set, who can like understand the research, who can also be hands-on, ops savvy, who has like experience in real world environments, in startup environments, in helping a 10 to 30 person organization wherever it's needed. I think that's sort of like not thinking in like so much siloed roles as people oftentimes are used to when they come from the broader corporate world. People you probably see more in tech startups or who are just very who can educate themselves and learn and jump into the field. So if you see yourself or could envision yourself becoming one of these people, that could be a really good leverage point for you. When we do career advising, we normally start with the Ikigai framework. This is a framework coming from Japanese background, and basically describes an intersection of 4 different areas. What do you love to actually do in your work? So thinking about where you've been most fulfilled, things that energize you. For me, it's the things that I love to do if I have free time on the weekend, like some work-related things. Really just, I sort of became my hobby, or have an overlap there and learning about that. Doing things that you do for free that you get paid for. But it also includes like questions about where could you live, because most of these organizations in the field are based in the US. I think about like 75% of the roles are on site in mainly on the West Coast in the US and in DC. So if you don't love to move there, if you can't move there, then it's much harder. Then the other intersection is what are you good at? So we need people with management, government network, management experience, government networks, legal expertise. In that area, we differentiate between the things you're good at and really also want to continue to do, and the so-called burnout skills. So in addition to asking you what you're good at, also it's important to also think about like what do you want to continue to do, because that might not be the same thing. So these two, what do you love, what you're good at, we see that as sort of the section of know yourself, like being clear about like what will the next step in your career transition actually look like. And then the other two are about knowing the terrain, which is going out there and understanding what the world needs. So exploring the different risk pathways, the high counterfactual roles, by reading, by upskilling, by talking to people. And yeah, last but not least, a fulfilling role also has to be one that can pay you what you need. So understanding and really having a clear grasp, what are your minimum financial needs? What does your family need? And then also mapping that to what kind of organizations can already like solve like a lot of questions and might rule out like many of the smaller nonprofit organizations in the space. One thing that I want to talk a little bit about is challenge your self-limiting beliefs. I think within that Ikigai's framework, sometimes also people limit themselves to like, well, I can't do this at the moment. I'm not good at this at the moment. So what we oftentimes hear, I can't join the field because I don't have a PhD. I'm too senior to start over. I don't have the technical skills. So yeah, they're the most common barriers. Yeah, I've also faced them in the beginning. I never went to university. I had my career transition with in my mid-40s. Didn't have a background in machine learning. But yeah, you don't need the ML background. It's enough to be informed, stay informed, do a course. We can always recommend the Blue Dot Impact courses. They're really good introduction to the field. Free courses that start every month about AGI strategy. 80,000 hours as a good career guide about AI safety careers. So these are like good starting points. And then the second part is to understand that a career transition typically takes 6 to 18 months. I always do the exit interviews with people who transition, and yeah, that just is a very, very typical timeline. So with like around about a year or so, it just needs to learn, but then also to network and to get into that. But yeah, we saw a school principal becoming a research manager, digital designer becoming a policy think tank project director. So people with diverse backgrounds are able to get into the field. And sometimes we think about that sort of in a matrix form. On the one axis, you have the existing skills that people bring in. On the other side, you have the effort that people put in, type of agency and grit, and you can sort of like map a line between like somebody who's very experienced and very senior probably can get in with much less effort, but somebody who is like, yeah, starts as an outsider can make it in just through like sheer work and just showing that they are able to do something and being able to contribute. So how does that work? How do you actually get into the field? So first, yeah, there's the setup. And I think that's one point that seems trivial. So blocking calendar time for a transition, sign up for some newsletters, join a community, commit to the process. But that is actually something where a lot of people already fail. People don't actually block out at least an hour per week for the career transition. Best is to have like 2 or 3 hours or even a full day. This is really hard if you have another full-time job, if you have family, but just blocking out an hour or 2 per week can actually already get you started. But that is sort of the minimum thing to do. And yeah, you really have to commit to that. Also, just knowing the field through newsletters is good. Joining like a community in terms of having others around you, could be a local community or an online one. Next step is to reflect and plan. So as I said, we recommend the Ikigai framework, which is really good to think about like where do I want, could I fit in this in this area. Then identify 3 to 5 target roles that match your skills, and also the needs of the field. So you already have sort of like a direction where you want to go. And then the next step is to learn and grow. So as I said, like a course as a Blue Dot course is really good to get into the field in about like 20 to 30 hours. You can get the basics, especially if you join a course that is also facilitated. So you have like the foundational knowledge. The fourth one is to present yourself, and that's where our work also comes in terms of our career advising, where we help people, but you can also do it yourself. Think about like, how do you want to present yourself in your CV, in your LinkedIn, in your elevator pitch, especially if you're thinking about these specific roles that you want to target. Another thing is to write a few public pieces, opinion articles, or LinkedIn policy briefs, because portfolio tops credentials. If you started off with a certain background, you can really change the impression by making yourself an expert in a certain sub area, by showing that you're knowledgeable within the field. So that's something we really recommend doing. And then the fifth one, really important, to explore and network. So we recommend people doing 15 informational interviews. So informational interviews means you go out there, set up a meeting with somebody, ask questions for roughly 70% of the time. So you can really understand what this organization currently needs, what they're working at, etc. And also in that, within this informational interview, also presenting yourself, like showing that you're knowledgeable, showing that you are really have enough knowledge to actually ask intelligent questions, and then also connect things with your past work experience, saying like, oh, this is actually something that matches what I've been doing, and this can actually lead you perhaps to a volunteer role, consultancy agreement, like a foot in the door, because we estimate that 50% of the jobs are never advertised. So getting like the network out there that can actually lead you to a role. And yeah, one person in our advising network did 100 conversations before finding a role. So this is like one thing to remember, to do like a, we call it the bucket full approach instead of the handful approach. Like instead of having like a few opportunities, like talking to a few people, applying to a few roles, like doing this on scale can lead you to much better outcomes. Yeah, so key principles: portfolio over credentials, use the job boards, 80,000 hours, safety.com are probably the best ones to keep track of, but at the same time be aware of like, this is probably just showing a subset of roles, and the roles that are probably most competitive. At the same time, applying for jobs can also be super informative, like the first few jobs that you'll be applying for, you'll probably be especially learning around the application process, about how to present yourself, and through trial and error, or through also career advising, you can learn about that. And yeah, as I said, like referral dominates hiring. So organizations in the field, they trust people they've observed. So if you are in a fellowship program with a mentor who's already in an organization, that's a great way to get a foot in the door. But you can also use the fellowship programs to show that you've been active in the field. So with you building the network in the field, you will make it much more likely that somebody will remember you, recommend you, will be able to act as a reference in a hiring process, or also just a potential collaborator for a new organization. So yeah, last point, consider founding. The ecosystem needs more organizations, auditors, security organizations, advocacy organizations in every country. So not the easiest pathway, but might lead to the highest counterfactual outcome in the field. Yeah, shout out what we can do. So we have 4 career advisors who can help you with free and personalized career advising. And what we do, we help people with strategic clarity, thinking about what actually is possible based on their family, finances, constraint, and other constraints. We do skill gap analysis, making sure that you don't end up like doing one course after the other. That's one thing we've found oftentimes that people just spend too much time in educating themselves instead of actually applying or going out there and networking. We can help with accountability, with regular check-ins, keeping up the momentum. We can help with feedback on CVs, cover letters. We can do mock interviews. We can do some introductions and networking. I don't focus too much on that because the whole field is people are overworked. So we will do introductions, but only if we see that you're actually also putting in the work and the weight, and that we can also be confident that the introduction is valuable for the people you're talking to, so that won't be in the first session. And a big part of what we're doing is actually emotional coaching, confidence building. We help a lot of people, even the most impressive people have come to us and said, you really helped me with imposter syndrome. I thought I wouldn't really fit in this environment of brilliant people. So that's something that comes up, and over half of the sessions, some kind of supporting through the frustrations of not being able to get a job quickly, through applying, getting rejected. So that's the unfortunate reality of the field, that there is a need there for people filling roles, but at the same time, there's also a relatively high bar, and getting to the field just needs some time. We've helped over 50 people transition into impactful roles in AI safety, overhead 700 advising sessions, 400 people. We used to have a relatively low bar for people joining, but that has gone up because also we are getting more applications. That being said, in addition to your existing background, one thing that can help in that area is also to show that you're already somewhat knowledgeable. So if you don't get into our program, I would definitely recommend doing a Blue Dot course. I think that's a great way to also show that that you have the basic knowledge in the field, but perhaps also what you've done within your moral vision circle might already be enough. So yeah, I think that's I do recommend to everybody to apply. It's an easy process. Yeah, I won't go through them again. Those are sort of the key takeaways that I'll just leave here, and leave the rest of the session as Q&A. And yeah, please feel free to ask any questions now, and I'll also open the Q&A. I recently transitioned to AI after a career break. It's been a while for me, but I get messages on LinkedIn from random people asking me to chat about how they might help. They're not recruiters or HR. Is that a new way of getting hired? It really depends. We are actually also doing at the moment our hiring round at Successif that is closed, and our recruiters are reaching out to people in that field. So, but they identify themselves as recruiters. So I would be aware of somebody who's not a recruiter. So if they're random, so definitely check out what's their background, and yeah, do you have mutual connections? Do they reference an organization that you can verify? Otherwise, yeah, could definitely be a scam, I think. I've been working in AI governance, mostly on operationalizing frameworks and coordinating stakeholders. I'm now trying to move towards AI safety or other high impact mission-driven work at the intersection of philosophy, policy, and operations. Given my background, where would you recommend I focus? So yeah, I think that's sort of where I would start with the Ikigai framework. So first thinking about, so sort of iterating on thinking about like what specific things within your career have been things that motivated you most. So I think especially within the AI governance sector, I think there's, or basically within any kind of, or most roles, there are different aspects that draw people more to the roles and others. So instead of thinking about like, I'm an AI governance person, thinking more about, I'm a person who brings like different skills to the table, which could be being able to work well with other people, being able to learn quickly about new concepts. It could be to understand or to sort of like translate one concept from, like, for example, a technical side to the policy side. So within that, thinking about like what are the areas that you really appreciate and really are driven and would love to do like work on more in after the career transition, then taking also the background and skills, and in the third step, mapping that to existing roles, like one of the roles that I presented now, which could, for example, be this technical to policy translator kind of roles, or it could be also more of a like direct policy work role within a think tank, for example. Taking all of that together, building sort of a hypothesis and then testing the hypothesis in terms of like going out to conferences, making connections in the fields, using community, using courses and similar platforms to connect with people who are already in the field, and then understanding like what is actually needed. Does that match your specific skills? Does that match your background, or do you need more upskilling? Is there like things that you can do quickly? Are there also cheap tests that you can do in terms of like doing a specific program and finding out if something also fits your background? So that's, I think, where the majority of these 12 months of time go in, like this iterative approach of thinking about the best fit, testing it out, talking with people, going back to the drawing board, tweaking things, saying like, oh, perhaps I should present like this specific aspect of my background more, and then going out there again and seeing how that lands. So what do you think is the best thing to do if short timelines are true? I think the best thing in terms of short timelines is probably joining something quickly. So that is more on the personal side. If you can apply to an organization and this organization can hire you directly and you're working on something that can actually make a difference quickly, that's great. If not, I think that also depends a lot on your background. I personally think that a portfolio approach is good. I'm glad that frontier AI companies are working on safety things at the same time. I'm also glad that people are advocating for AI pause. I think different scenarios can work out in different ways. You can sort of like directly volunteer within organizations like Pause AI. You can volunteer as somebody who does country-specific outreach, or you could start as a communicator directly. But I think taking sort of like a little bit longer step in terms of like trying to get into a role in the next 6 to 12 months probably takes more strategic approach than just volunteering, and that is then more this question on where's your best personal fit, where can you show to organizations that you can make a difference. And that goes back again to this Ikigai approach, knowing the field, understanding like which kind of roles are out there, and then making up your own theory of change in terms of understanding the different ways that organization could help. I don't know, one organization that comes to my mind, Meter, for example, they do evals And I think they've been like really important to show people how capabilities have been advancing, and that can be used for communication. So joining that organization might help. But you could also say, well, my own theory of change is that certain AI frontier organizations are taking safety more seriously than others. So I can explore a fit at these organizations. But you can also look at very small organizations that might have, under certain scenarios, a high leverage because they might be really good, become really good at communicating. They might find like a way to actually make certain policy legislation more likely. So I think that's sort of also part of this career transition, to understand the field. And it is complex, it is big. Many things are not completely in the public because they could be risky in terms of communication. So also getting more involved, doing more networking will reveal more and more options, I think. And Carolina, if there are sort of like chat things that you want to also highlight, then no.
Yes, so there was a mention that people had very positive experience with meeting POS-AI volunteers, also me and Claudia, and somebody mentioned that there's a like a big conference from POS-AI in April 11th to 14th in Washington, DC. That being said, if you also go to POS-AI sort of Luma event calendar, you'll see a number of different events. So yeah, also definitely recommending getting in touch with them.
Okay, next question was, once we apply to Successif, how long does it take to hear back? Should we apply again after 3 months? So at the moment we have a bottleneck because we had an event with Blue Dot Impact in December, and we had more than 100 applications at the same time. And we also had like a transition within our advisor team. So we had a bottleneck, which we usually didn't have. I think this will be cleared up within the next month or two. So at the moment it can like still take 1 to 2 months for you to hear back. Normally we would want to like get back to you within 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, we're working on this bottleneck, which is not only the advisor capacity, but also capacity on our reviewers for the applications. So yeah, I mean, if we didn't get back to you yet, you shouldn't reapply because we will get back. But if you fear that the application has gone lost, then do send us an email, contact@successif.org. But otherwise, yeah, I'm sorry for this taking longer than normal.
Maybe as sort of a follow-up to that question, if somebody is rejected, let's say, is there any, can they reapply within a year, or some sort of timeline that Hilary maybe mentioned? What's the procedure?
Yeah, you can definitely reapply. We currently don't really filter for like and have any internal mechanisms to show that somebody already applied. So if you reapply, and especially if you like also mention that you applied, but since then did something, for example, took a course, did something, did like some self-learning, went to a conference, like if you sort of like show that you're more familiar with the field or have done something that can change the chances. That being said, we don't specifically want to focus only on people who have like a lot of prior experience. So we're also trying to make a trade-off between like helping people who are completely new to the field, and at the same time also people who have like actually shown that they already did something there. So it doesn't necessarily change the chances, but yeah, you can definitely reapply. This question was, it seems most roles are for US UK. Where can a EU-based multilingual tech generalist profile fit? Yeah, so that's the unfortunate reality. Most roles are in the US, some are in the UK, especially London-based, and then within the EU, you do have like there are some think tanks in Brussels. There are some small organizations in Paris, Zurich, a few people here and there. But I'm from Germany. Also in Germany, there are just very few organizations at all, and very few people working on that. That being said, I think there's like, on the one hand side, you can use that as a leverage in terms of like becoming knowledgeable within your regional context and being available and being possibly the person that can be hired if a new think tank or an existing think tank's office opens in a country office. You could be the person who actually drives communication outreach because you have the local context. Yeah, tech generalists, I think that could be like one of these amplifier roles. So sort of like being in the networks of the potential like countries you would be willing to move to, reaching out to them, seeing what their needs are. You might find out that they are actually looking for somebody who could be a program manager or a director of operations, somebody to sort of like move along or grow the organization. Or it could also be somebody who does like some engineering manager roles. But yeah, that being said, it is the unfortunate reality that there currently is a gap there. Yeah, what we are doing also is we're doing job market research to find out like what other adjacent kinds of organizations existing, government institutions, companies, etc., could play a role under certain GCR risks, and then we want to also publish some findings there, but will probably take another few months until we have that together. Next one. I would happily transition to many of the critical roles you identified, but I don't see many of them posted. I rely on the 80K job board, but other spots I should be looking, although these roles typically get filled via professional networks. Yeah, I think that is the point, that some of these roles will be posted in 80K, but many of these roles will be also opened up through the professional networks. So I think doing both, being there and looking for roles can help, and at the same time also doing individual networking. We are increasingly encouraging organizations to reach out to us if they open up hiring, and sometimes also get requests from organizations who haven't opened up the hiring yet, or will never do so. So that is one possibility to also get in. Yeah, that being said, I think this combination is probably the thing that most people do, trying in both directions. Do you see mid-sized private companies hiring for AI safety roles within the next couple of years? Probably, but personally, or in terms of Successif, we are not really focused on most for-profit companies in terms of the global catastrophic risks, as most companies probably won't have a high leverage. I do see exceptions if the company is a monopolist in the supply chain. So if certain developments wouldn't be possible without this company, there might be like leverage to be had. So somebody who's very safety concerned could perhaps have some influence there. That being said, yeah, that's a lot of sort of speculation, and yeah, will be hard to see. You highlighted operations and chief of staff roles as strong leverage points in AI safety. For someone coming from an operations and institutional coordination background, how realistic are those paths today, and what concrete steps should they take in the next 6 months to move into them? Yeah, as I said, I think a lot of yeah, I think what surprises people oftentimes is if you come in and you have like if you already have like a lot of operations experience and coordination background, you would think that it should be relatively easy to get hired into the roles because you're a generalist and you don't really see that you have to have that much of a domain knowledge. However, many of the organizations are relatively small and are led by researchers, are led by people who are not experts in running organizations or running teams. So you might see yourself in a leadership role where you're running, where you're managing researchers, where you're part of the strategic decisions. And for that reason, many organizations want to make sure that you have like sufficient knowledge in the domain to actually sit on the table, be able to be part of the discussion. So that's where this, where the upskilling, but also the networking comes in, where showing like a portfolio of projects, even if you're from the operations side, can be helpful. I think I can share one link, which is description of one of our past advisees, Jim Chapman, who is the director of operations at NATS now, how he got into the field, how he did the kind of networking and the kind of upskilling and projects that he did. I think it's fairly typical. So you can see sort of like the timelines of what he did in terms of like what services he used, what projects he did, and so on. So I think many of these things are necessary to just be part of the like conversation and also show that you have sufficient knowledge in the field. How beneficial is experience managing some of the short-term, day-to-day AI risks, bias, responsible rollout of corporate tools, etc., compared to directly gaining more understanding of the bigger picture AI safety risks? I don't think that like short-term AI risk experience is super helpful. It's definitely like not negative. It's probably easier to get into also get the understanding of the bigger AI safety risks, to understand like the different ways where AI systems could be misaligned, scheming behaviors, being able to reach like deeper technical articles and research papers just to get more into the field. So I think that's probably a good background to have, but it's definitely like not necessary. And someone who doesn't have that experience probably can upskill quickly. So if you don't have that knowledge and you're thinking about, should I go into like the short-term sort of like AI risk managing, or do I want to work on the global catastrophic risk side, then I would say like go directly to the global catastrophic risks, unless you're personally more motivated on to work on the shorter term sides. I think it's totally like valid to a very important field. It's just not the field that I can talk to so much. The slide you shared with recommended steps to take, kind of pyramid shapes. Are those steps you expect advising applicants to already have taken, or do you see them as things that Advisee does with Successif? Yeah, those are the steps that advisees typically do with us. So we don't expect people to have done anything before. So they can come in, and this is basically based on the initial document that we normally share with advisees in the first session. So that's sort of like giving you a sneak preview into that. That being said, if you apply to our services, you don't get in, or you actually like want to do it on your own, you can just also take that and start already. So I think especially the first ones, making sure you have like time set for working on that, subscribing to resources, reading up, thinking about this Ikigai approach. You can find free resources around the web. I think those are things you can like start with them already tomorrow. And I think where probably the main benefit of our services comes in is more like having a thought partner on the strategic side, and then also being able to sort of help you to overcome beliefs, helping you with imposter syndrome, helping you to think through like things you initially ruled out because you're thinking you're not good enough if you can actually apply to them. So I think that's where the one-on-one approach is probably the most helpful. Next question was, are there any opportunities for product managers or designers in AI safety? We initially thought so, and we still have like a role description out there on our website from 23, but unfortunately that didn't really became so much of a thing. However, I do think we're like seeing a wave of for-profit AI safety startups evolving, where basically the organizations work for-profit companies in implementing tools and processes that make their operational life safe, and that can also help in the broader field of reducing AI existential risks through different approaches. And for these organizations, I do see that product managers and also designers, people working on the UX side, could become really important. And especially if this is a small organization, you might be able to be one of the first employees there. You could make a bigger difference, not only working on the product side, but also helping the organization in general grow. Or you could also start out like offering these services as a contractor, as a freelancer, if that's possible financially or operationally. So yeah, I would definitely try it first, and especially try to network with the for-profit startup side. What are your most recommended newsletters or sources for accurate and well-balanced AI information versus hype? My personal favorite is Transformer. It's a Substack by Shakil Hashim and a team of people. They're actually like building up a bigger team. They have a weekly brief, and they're also doing like more and more exclusive stories at the moment. I really think their selection of content is good. It gives you the big picture, the policy picture, the technological development in AI in general, but then it just has a very specific angle around AI risks, where it's good to not lose focus. Another one that we recommend in general is on aisafety.com. There's specifically AI safety newsletter, and then there are a few other ones that just thinking if I can actually share that, the ones that we normally recommend. And that's purely subjective in terms of like, so AI Frontiers is another one. I'll just post the links here in the chat. Yeah, Frontiers, then set Transformer. And then for the technical side, there's also the ML safety one. Yeah, I don't personally have like experience with AI Frontiers and ML Safety Net, and these links might also already be a little bit outdated, so I'm not sure how active they are, but definitely Transformer for me. What if your focus has been more on the global south, global majority? Is this background of interest? It seems the roles in catastrophic risks don't focus here. Our operations and process manager came from an organization that was focused on global health, working in the global south. She's a fantastic operational manager, and just was able to use the context of working within a smallish organization with uncertainty, with constraints from funding, from different remote people work and so on, and just translating this kind of work to the work at Successif. So I think in terms of the skills that you learned in these with this background, I can definitely see that. And I would probably like happily hire for somebody who has shown that they are able to, just work under certain contexts that are just more challenging, which could be like startup world, which can be like organizations that have been like working under constraints. Whereas I think for somebody coming from a more sort of like comfortable corporate world, there's probably like other upsides that are good there. So yeah, I think that's sort of like one thing. The other thing to say, I would love to be able to integrate more people from the global south. We have one team member who is from an African country, who is just very constrained in terms of visa and working in other fields. We are fortunate that we're in remote organizations and can integrate him, but we would love to have more opportunities out there. So, for example, being a startup co-founder to dip into this talent gap can be one way. Another way could be to sort of like see what the policy leverage points could be in the global south, which countries could have leverage under certain scenarios. So I also definitely wouldn't rule it out, but it needs more, this kind of like entrepreneurial, more spirit of figuring out ways, not going down that problem path. And you probably won't find the roles on the 80K job board, but that is not to say that there could be a way to do that.
Yes, to briefly add to that question, organization I'm working at as an which is a global AI governance alliance. They did recently produce a number of reports related to global south and AI governance. So you can reach out via my email that's in the chat if you want to learn more. That being said, we are still in a fundraising stage of an organization. So the only sort of positions we can currently offer are more volunteer based, but there's also something if you want to build an experience or portfolio.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that these kinds of volunteer-based roles are really good at showing that you are getting into the field, that you can build experience. So that's great. Next question was, I left the concept of amplifier, but if these jobs don't really exist and we feel we fit, should we focus more on networking and cold outreach instead of applying to jobs? I think the concept of amplifier can be reflected sometimes in jobs. So you sometimes see different kinds of job postings, which could be sort of like chief of staff, operations leads, operations generalists kinds of roles. All of these oftentimes have like a huge overlap in terms of you're joining a small organization and you're starting with a job description, but you'll never exactly do what is on the job description because you're just like jumping in doing like different kinds of things. So yeah, I would see myself in this category at Successif. I started as a consultant, then was invited by the founder and CEO to join when there was a new funding application and money came in. I led the team of advisors when I was COO, and now transferred to interim CEO to also be able to stay around. So many of the things I'm doing is running marketing campaign, drafting internal policies, speaking to lawyers, to other consultants in the field, going to conferences, networking, doing some research. It's basically you have to be have the mindset of a consultant, but also the kind of ownership of somebody who is running an organization, being aware that your activities could be really leverage and high leverage, and you're not doing a job, you're really building something. So that being said, I think the combination of networking and applying also here is the key. Just to be aware that sometimes job descriptions are not the whole picture, and especially like things that are required in the job are not the things that the organizations will actually screen for or be able to hire for. So I would also like be more broad in applying for jobs, even if it's not 100% fit, because that could be one of these roles.
Maybe just to sort of follow up on this question, as an amplifier yourself, what's your best tip on how you position yourself as an amplifier?
Yeah, basically, what I did, I later saw was really the recommendation by Successif. So I didn't like do that on purpose, but it seemed useful. So I initially talked with some people in some organizations. That was in the beginning, Effective Spenden, Effective Giving organization in Germany. I saw that they were lacking, or they were using a software system that cost them more money that was especially necessary. I have a software development background, so I sat down and wrote a software system that was for free, helped them hire like a software developer to run this system. So that was my first volunteer project. With that, I went to the first conference, Effective Altruism Global Conference. I talked with people, initially presented myself as somebody who can like solve software development projects. And then people told me like, oh, yeah, actually you have organizational background in building organizations. That is actually much more valuable. So I changed my profile. I went to the next conference, like talking with everybody who was more entrepreneurial, with the background, with thinking I could like be a startup founder. I tried like a co-founder matching for one person who had like a good idea. I ran that. I got funding for that. That didn't work out. I'm networked, found an organization that needed leadership consulting in specific areas. I did that as a paid consultant, and then I applied for some jobs. I actually turned down jobs that were offered to me because they didn't seem to so counterfactually high. These seem to be sort of organizations that would be where they would be able to find people more easily, especially in the global health field. So I wanted to push myself and try to find like a role that was had a higher contractual, and landed at EA Germany as co-director, doing good community building, an area I never had like any experience with, but where not so many people applied. So I saw this as a great leverage point. Initially thinking I could grow the organization, and then, as I said, like through continuous other like volunteering on the side and so on, I found Successif. So I think that's one of the typical, non-typical like pathways where like a lot of like trying out and networking and so on eventually lands you one thing, and that doesn't have to be like the last thing. And now I think I'm in the perfect fit role, which Germany wasn't before. I'm very happy that I found it, but yeah, definitely not the specifics that I can recommend, but I think the background is what I presented in the talk. That is sort of like this, going through the different stages and just continuously doing that, going to conferences, just not giving up, and seeing that you're see that sort of as a marathon, not a sprint. A career change is a big thing, but it can be done. And yeah, I hope that all of you are motivated to do that and stay on track. And also hope that I see many of your applications at Successif, and would love to help you to also go through this journey. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a great opportunity to speak here. And thank you, Carolina, for organizing all of this.
Thank you so much for finding time for us. Also, from the number of clapping hands, I can say with confidence that it has been extremely useful to many participants. And thank you for staying longer and answering so many so many questions. And thank you all for joining and being so much engaged. And I hope to see you on the future talks. One that may also be of interest to many of you is also on specifically building career in AI governance, and that will be happening in May. So stay tuned for that.